Hello Frank, these are your carburetors. Just want to let you know how wonderful they turned out. I'm going to go over a few things before we crank them up for you. We have all new throttle shafts, new throttle plates. The throttle shafts right in bushings where they didn't originally. All the machine surfaces, mounting surfaces have been machined. Got factory needle in seats. Factory gaskets, which you can tell because of the red color. All the accelerator pump diaphragms are all correct and red. Idle mixture screw holes have been machined and made perpendicular to the bores where the factory didn't in the first place. The second barrel, let me move the camera. The second barrel idle mixture screws have been blanked off. They're dummies, don't touch them. They don't do anything anyway. Helicoils installed in the air horn studs and on the accelerator base mounting holes. Anodized aluminum plates attached to the carburetor bodies to help stabilize the zinc die cast. All steel parts have been cadmium plated, not zinc but cadmium. When mounting the carburetors, be sure to use 2 wrenches, one to support and stabilize this fitting in the carburetor float bowl cover, and then the other wrench to do your swivel fitting. You don't want to take the chance of ripping this out. I only use new factory mounting gaskets. These rubber gaskets in between the carburetor body and the intake manifold, just use new factory gaskets. Aftermarkets don't work very well. Be sure to I'll include instructions, but be sure to use wave washers in between the body of the carburetor and the rubber gasket. Let's see, when you mount the carburetors, fit them up loosely where you can move them a little bit, but they'll stay in position. Then install your big air log that goes on here. Install your air log, get everything fitted up, and then snug the carburetors down and pull your air log off and make sure that the air log is going to go off on and off correctly and easily. Tighten the carburetors in a crisscross pattern. I'm sure you know that anyway, but a little bit here and a little bit underneath the lower left, and a little bit in the upper left, and a little bit in the lower right. Just give it a crisscross pattern. And be sure to install the carburetor support rod, and you should be ready to go. I will include my instructions. Fuel is very important on these carburetors. I suggest a secondary fuel filter after the factory fuel filter and before the fuel pump. Just a steel inline that you can get at the auto parts store. Be sure you got clean gas in the gas tank, you got clean fuel lines, and if you see any red sediment anywhere or that looks like sand, obviously it's rust. Now then, the carburetors are tuned. You don't need to do anything to adjust them, except this is your let's get this lined up here. Okay, the only thing you get to adjust is this throttle rod right here. It's a turnbuckle, and that's what it's designed to do, is to dial in your throttle linkage exactly. The other throttle linkages are set center to center on the balls, and I'll give you instructions to show you what those measurements are. And then the very last one that you're going to do is you're going to turnbuckle this into place so that when you snap it into position, it does not change the rest of the linkage. Let's see. The initial settings, if you should not have to mess with any of this stuff, but if you or somebody else does in the future, your initial settings on your idle mixture screws are 1.5 turns out. And what you do is you screw this in until it just barely touches, and then screw it back out 1.5 turns. That's your basic setting. Do not wrench down on these things. There's no need for that. It's just going to distort the metal, and it serves no purpose. There's nothing down there that you're squeezing or pinching or adjusting or messing with that needs to be crammed down there super tight. Adjust your do all your adjustments once the carburetors are warmed up. And let's see, another important item that's part of the maintenance that you get to do is your G55, your idle jets. G55. If for some reason your car will run fine above idle, but at idle it dies, It's this jet right here which is clogged up, and take it out and blow it out, and blow a little air through, or a little B12 through the passageways, and clean it out. And if need be, if you're stuck on the road someplace, you can take this jet out, which is not being used, and you can swap it for the other jet. Let's see, the other adjustments you can make, I forgot to mention, is for your choke mechanism. You can adjust these levers up and down to get the proper orientation to the wire coming down. This is a real Rube Goldberg operation. What you can do is pull your choke cable and test it before you hook it up here, and you know these things work. And then when you hook everything up, you're going to find you got a lot of bind and an extra hard pull on there, just because it's a lousy geometry setup. But just make sure everything is working before you hook it all up, and you'll be okay. Now then, we obviously got a cold engine. What I make sure I've got fuel up here. I goose the lever on the fuel pump. Make sure you got fuel. Next thing you do is you're going to goose it a couple of times. Going to choke it, and let's see what happens. And we test our choke. As you probably can see, the only thing your choke is doing is obviously moving your butterfly, but it's also moving this throttle lever right here. So you're physically opening up the throttle to do the move that makes it to choke the vehicle. This is your master choke, and this is your slave. Excuse me. Now what we'll do is get this thing revved up to get it warmed up. I'm still making adjustments on the fiber washers, and it will drive you crazy until you get them all sealed up. That's why I test these things several times and let them sit. You just never know. Now we're actually not even up to temperature here, but this thing runs so well. We can start adjusting. I'll show you how to adjust the carburetors. First thing you're going to do is, well, obviously we already got a good idle. Let's see. So if you have your initial setting for your idle is 1.5 turns on the idle screw. So you back it out completely, and then you screw it in 1.5 turns on both screws. You then want to start checking to see what your airflow is like. Make sure you don't have any airflow on the second barrel. Let's see if we get a better camera angle here for you. Alright, I don't know. I don't know if you can see it or not. The needle didn't move. Needle doesn't move. It's just amazing the machine work that these guys did. And then what you want to do is equalize the draw through both carburetors. And right there's a 10. Right there's 7. So what we want to do is pop our linkage off. So we make sure we got the same. Now you see the idle changed? Well, that's a linkage adjustment. My linkage was out of adjustment because that turnbuckle is not tight. So now we're back here. We're at 6 and change. 7. So all we're going to do is screw this in. So we're at 7. Alright, there's 7 there. 7 there. Your next mission is to adjust the turnbuckle, so when you snap it in place, it does not change anything. That's why we got a turnbuckle here, so we can turn it in and out. And nothing changed, and that's what you're looking for. And obviously I got mine undone so I can test various carburetors, but you're obviously going to snug this down, and when you snug it down, make sure nothing changes. Next, you're going to adjust your idle mixture screw. And your job here is to turn them in and out until you turn them in until the engine stumbles, out until the engine stumbles, and find your sweet spot in between. Alright, start to stumble a little bit, back it out, RPM changes, very subtle. You might be able to hear the air drawing even more. Starting to stumble again, go back where we were in the first place. And that's all there is to it. And you can just sit there and play with this just as much as you want till you find the exact spot. It's very, very precise. And that's it. Actually, you should not have to do anything to these carburetors except set your throttle linkage. Obviously, if you want to set your idle, that's going to depend on where you want the car to idle. I think it's a good idle, about 750. If you want it to idle more, then you simply turn this screw in the same amount. Let's say an eighth of a turn, and this screw in about an eighth of a turn. Now we come over here and we check to see what we've done. Alright, so we've got about 7.5. And over here. Alright. This illustrates fun with linkage. Alright, so I'm going to start all over again. And also it's going to be the throttle return spring is not too strong on my carburetor setup here. So alright, we're at 7 here. I think it's 6 there, and do this out. 6 here, and you have to pull up on the throttle rod. You can see that or not. Move this down a little bit. Pull that on the throttle. Pull up on the throttle rod, assuming that the spring. We got 6 there. 6 there. Now let's go back with the linkage. Make sure this is going to snap on here. That's too much. Too short. Alright. See if it changes any. 6, a little bit changes, just a smidge. Welcome to the world of multiple carburetors and linkage. Alright. That's a nice tractable engine. You're going to be happy with that. I know, because I'm happy with it. I know you'll be happy with it. Nice hot start. We are ready to rock and roll. Thank you, sir, for your patience.